Picture this, it's 1975, and your neighbor is painting his house with lead-based paint while his kids play on railroad tracks. Down the street, a 12-year-old walks out of the corner store with cigarettes for dad, then heads home to play with lawn darts in the backyard. Sound like a lawsuit waiting to happen. That was just another Tuesday in 1970s America. Today, we're exploring 12 things that were completely legal, even normal, in the 70s, but would get you arrested, fined, or sued into oblivion today. Let's start with something that would horrify modern parents. Kids buying cigarettes for their families. In the 1970s, it was perfectly normal for children to walk into any store and purchase cigarettes for mom or dad. Sometimes they carried a handwritten note, but often no proof was needed at all. Remember those cigarette vending machines? They were everywhere. Restaurants, bowling alleys, hotel lobbies. Any kid with pocket change could buy a pack of Marlboros without a single question. The cultural context was completely different. Smoking wasn't just accepted, it was glamorized. The Marlboro Man dominated advertising, and smoking was seen as sophisticated. Today, selling cigarettes to minors results in hefty fines, license revocation, and criminal charges. What was once a routine childhood errand became one of the most regulated transactions in America. Lead-based paint was the standard for virtually everything in the 1970s: nurseries, playground equipment, toys, even baby cribs. Why was lead paint so popular? It was superior in every way that mattered to consumers. Incredibly durable, vibrant colors, and maintained its glossy finish for decades. Parents had no idea they were creating toxic environments. When paint chips fell or dust accumulated, kids were exposed to lead particles, causing developmental delays, learning disabilities, and permanent brain damage. In 1978, the federal government banned lead-based paint for residential use. But millions of homes built before 1978 still contain lead paint. Today, disturbing lead paint during renovations without proper certification is a federal crime, with fines reaching $37,500 per violation. What our grandparents considered premium paint is now classified as hazardous material. Road tracks weren't just transportation infrastructure in the 1970s, they were extended playgrounds for American children. Kids routinely walked along rails trying to balance, used tracks as shortcuts to school, and placed pennies on rails to see them flattened by passing trains. Some dared each other to cross trestles before trains arrived. The attitude toward rail safety was incredibly relaxed. Parents saw it as harmless adventure that built character. Today, railroad companies enforce strict trespassing laws with hefty fines and criminal charges. Stepping onto track property without authorization can result in fines up to $10,000 and potential jail time. What was once childhood adventure is now forbidden and high-risk activity. Lawn darts represented backyard fun until people realized they were essentially throwing deadly weapons around their families. Original lawn darts featured heavy metal tips designed to stick into the ground when thrown. Summer barbecues regularly featured lawn dart competitions with foot-long missiles sailing through the air. But that metal tip that made the game work also made it lethal. The final straw came in 1987 when a 7-year-old girl was killed by a lawn dart. Her father's crusade led to a complete federal ban. Today, possessing original metal-tipped lawn darts is illegal in the United States. What seemed like innocent family fun was actually Russian roulette with projectile weapons. If you flew in the 1970s, you experienced airplane cabins thick with cigarette smoke. Every seat had an ashtray built into the armrest. Flight attendants regularly offered cigarettes to passengers. The smoking section was the back half of the plane, but smoke doesn't respect boundaries. Long international flights were particularly brutal. By journey's end, the air was so thick with smoke that non-smokers often arrived feeling sick. Airlines started with smoking bans on short domestic flights in 1988, expanding restrictions gradually. By 2000, smoking was completely prohibited on all commercial flights. Today, lighting a cigarette on an airplane is a federal crime punishable by fines up to $25,000 and potential jail time. Clackers were two heavy acrylic balls on a string designed to smash together as hard as possible. Kids loved the rhythmic clacking sound everywhere: playgrounds, toy stores, birthday parties. But these weren't gentle toys. The balls were heavy and hard, swinging at high speeds, inches from children's faces. When kids lost control, the balls would strike hands, arms, and faces with considerable force. Worse yet, the balls sometimes shattered from repeated impacts, sending sharp fragments flying. Schools began banning them, and manufacturers were forced to redesign clackers with softer materials. Today, vintage clackers are collector's items, but using them would violate modern toy safety standards. Many high schools in the 1970s had designated smoking areas where students could legally light up between classes. Students lined up along smoking walls and puffed away openly during breaks. Teachers smoked in faculty lounges and sometimes even in classrooms. The logic seemed reasonable if students were going to smoke anyway. Better to provide designated areas. School administrators saw it as practical harm reduction. By the late 1980s, schools began eliminating smoking areas. Today, smoking anywhere on school property results in immediate disciplinary action and potential criminal charges. Every car in America ran on leaded gasoline throughout the 1970s, creating a toxic cloud over every city and highway. Lead was added to prevent engine knocking and improve performance. It worked for cars, but was poisoning everyone who breathed the air. Children playing near busy roads were exposed to dangerous levels of lead. The health effects were devastating: learning disabilities, behavioral problems, and reduced IQ in children. Adults suffered from high blood pressure and neurological issues. By 1996, leaded gasoline was completely banned for road vehicles. Average blood lead levels in American children dropped by over 80%. What powered every American car for decades is now recognized as one of the most significant environmental health threats of the 20th century. In the 1970s, children's sleepwear was required by law to be treated with flame-retardant chemicals. Following tragic incidents where children's pajamas caught fire, the Consumer Product Safety Commission mandated flame-resistant sleepwear. Parents felt safer knowing their children's pajamas wouldn't easily ignite. But these chemicals could be absorbed through skin and accumulated in children's bodies. Research linked flame retardants to hormone disruption, developmental problems, and increased cancer risk. Many flame retardants used in 1970s children's clothing are now banned. What seemed like essential safety protection is now recognized as potentially more dangerous than the fires it was meant to prevent. Candy cigarettes were fake cigarettes designed specifically for children, crafted to look exactly like real cigarettes with white paper wrappers and red tips. Some included powdered sugar for smoke. Kids loved pretending to smoke. Like adults, they saw everywhere. Parents saw nothing wrong with children mimicking smoking behavior. Many found it cute. As awareness of smoking's health risks grew, candy cigarettes became controversial. Critics argued they normalized smoking behavior and potentially encouraged children to try real cigarettes later. Today, traditional candy cigarettes are difficult to find and controversial when they appear. Diet-conscious Americans relied heavily on Cyclamate, an artificial sweetener 30 times sweeter than sugar and calorie-free. Cyclamate was everywhere: diet sodas, sugar-free desserts, weight loss products. Americans consumed massive quantities, believing they'd found the perfect solution to weight management. But in 1969, a study suggested extremely high doses might cause bladder tumors in mice. The FDA banned Cyclamate in 1970, pulling thousands of products from shelves overnight. Interestingly, many other countries never banned Cyclamate and still permit its use today. What Americans consumed freely in the early 1970s is still prohibited here. Red dye number 2 was widely used in foods and beverages, but studies suggested potential health risks, though conclusions weren't definitive. The controversy reached peak absurdity when M&M's, despite never using red dye number 2, stopped producing red M&M's in 1976 to avoid customer concern. The U.S. banned red dye number 2 in 1976, despite inconclusive evidence. Red M&M's returned in 1987, when red dye number 40 was deemed safe. This demonstrates how public perception can shape policy even without clear scientific evidence. These 12 examples show how dramatically American life has transformed in just 5 decades. What seemed perfectly normal in the 1970s is now illegal, banned, or heavily regulated. Some changes clearly improved public health and safety. Others might make you wonder if we've gone too far, trading freedom for government protection. The 1970s represented a time when Americans had fewer rules to follow, which meant life was riskier but perhaps more adventurous. Which of these banned activities do you remember from your childhood? Share your memories in the comments below, and subscribe to Vintage American Tales for more stories of the America we used to know.